Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities and Miniatures. It's Friday, which means, whether you want it or not, it's time for some more obscurities in literature. Today's rather large book, and I mean, it's big, it's a hefty book, is the new Lancer Core Rulebook, which comes to us from Massif Press. Now, you might be familiar with the artist, if I can lift the book as it rocks the entire table. One of the catches here, and one of the reasons it caught my radar, was that the art in one of the main people behind this book is Tom Parkinson Morgan. And if you don't know that name, well, I pity you, but Mr. Morgan is also the guy responsible for one of my absolute favorite comics, Kill 6 Billion Demons, and just the sheer crazy variety of stuff that is existing in this book. And it has continued to get better. We're not going to spoil it and talk about the stuff that has been happening online. Just rest assured that it is just as cool as the other ones. Now, it wouldn't be a Tom Parkinson Morgan book, I guess, without everything not being of the same size. But the caliber and quality of the artwork within the book, which we'll get to in a sec, is just as nice and as detailed and as wild and as imaginative as anything that exists in Kill 6 Billion Demons as well. And yeah, I'm not showing you any of the interesting panels, but whatever. Okay, let's get to the book at hand. So, as you can see, crazy looking mechs and sci-fi, robot-y, kung fu, futuristic stuff. That's as best as I can describe it. The actual term that they use in the book is mud and lasers, and I think that's a pretty appropriate comment with some very anime-inspired looking mechs. So yeah, mechs are the big focus of this RPG. And I'm not usually into RPGs, but I had to make an exception here. We'll talk a little bit more about it mechanic-wise. Now, I'm not an expert on tabletop RPGs, as this book actually is, but I can at least offer a bit of my own random advice here and there. The main book itself is broken down into 5 main sections, and you can see them here. So first you have into getting your pilot made, how the mission structure works, combat, which is actually quite quick. We'll talk about combat when we get to that in the book. And then there's this massive list of the Compendium. The Compendium, actually, well, there's 6 sections, I think, now that I think about it. Yeah, because the 6th section. Okay, there's 5 right here, 6 on the next page. I was like, yeah, I'm rambling, but that's okay. Anyway, the Compendium, getting back on track here. All these listings are for the various mechs that are available to pilots as they go through the game. You've got your guy who runs the game, GM section, getting into enemies, missions, all that. And then the last 100 pages or so is just nothing but straight up lore and fluff. So the cool thing about this book is the art is just absolutely gorgeous. If you are a mech nerd, if you dig, you know, Gundam and that kind of stuff, there is plenty there for you to enjoy. Big, huge double-page spreads, the usual Tom Parkinson Morgan interesting-looking characters. We go into the pilot's background, lots of interesting choices to roll off of. Now, what's interesting is the non-combat parts of the game are very free-form, very open to, you know, both the players and the GM running it in terms of how things go. And then it's like when you get into combat, things get crazy detailed. So yeah, things about the mission here. Again, I'm just kind of flipping through to show you some of the stuff, what you can do on downtime, and a lot of it's very storytelling driven, which if you're familiar with Kill 6 Billion Demons, and especially the RPG they have based on it, it is very story driven as well. And then we get into combat. Now, combat is quite the interesting beast, and combat also has this really swanky James Sticco double-page spread here of mechs and zombie monster things and dudes on the ground running around. But anyway, combat itself is very much a grid-based, very almost tabletop miniature skirmish level type game. So that caught my eyes really fast. You've got all kinds of like modifiers, ranged rulers, and, you know, different patterns of attack, cover, different types of cover, various actions involved, pilots doing stupid stuff like trying to attack other mechs on foot, things like that. All kinds of fun quirks for if you die and your clones that come back. Again, fun storytelling possibilities. But then we get into the real meat and potatoes of the book, and that is the Compendium section. And this is where all the fun stuff starts to really show up. And the gloss of the book is really not helping. So these are various skills that your characters can have, and as they level up, they get all kinds of little extra perks that go along with it. Very gamey, which I enjoy. Growing up playing Super Robot Wars and the like, this very much felt at home for me. You can see here, I know it's kind of glaring, so if I can fix that. So just some of the various ranges: cones, bursts, lines, blasts, sprays, thin things like that. So, again, I really feel that the combat system, having actually spent a good chunk of time reading through that a lot, it really does feel like a tabletop skirmish level war game. And I really, really hope that perhaps someday we might see some of the mechs actually make it into tabletop models. So here you can see there's 4 main companies within the fluff background of the Union that exists out in space, that the Lancers themselves are pilots in. So you can see here, so when you get into the actual Compendium section, most pages have full page art of the mech. You have its basic stats, and then as your Lancer pilots level up their licenses, then it opens up new opportunities to weapons, skills, things that you have access to that you wouldn't have had access to before. And if you are familiar with Kill 6 Billion Demons, the fluff writing for some of the more advanced crazy mechs gets really almost bordering into that stuff. So there's mechs of all kinds here, depending on what kind of taste you have. You want close combat ones, you want gunslinger ones, you want big, fat, chunky, boxy guys, big close combat brawler types. Let's get into the fun stuff. Where's the Horus mechs? The Horus mechs are, Horus being one of the companies that build these things. As you go through the book, they do start to get a bit crazier. But no, the Horus mechs, I feel, are the really wild, untested, bizarre stuff. Being able to kind of go in and out of reality, and fun things like that. Unfortunately, oh, here's Horus. Yeah, the Horus ones are my favorite. So every mech, depending upon which company they come from, all have like a set of basic skills available. And yeah, here we get into the lesson of transubstantiation, the lesson of the held image, the lesson of thinking tomorrow's thought. I mean, this is like pure Kill 6 Billion Demon type fluff writing. So obviously the Baylor with its giant whip, and there's like mechs using nanobot whips, hive swarms of nanobots, the Goblin. And again, as you level up, all this stuff is just kind of crazy techniques and things that these mechs can do as you get into it. And again, I'm just like, why are we not getting models of this stuff? This thing's crazy. I think the Hydra, one of these can like dismember itself and let the parts fight on their own. The Tempest Drone, the Annihilation Nexus, the Manticore. Yeah, there's some wild ones. Unfortunately, the middle of my book decided to have the pages just completely fall out, which I'm not very happy about. A very Ava Unit 05 looking, that was a 513, Angel one. The white ones, the ones from the movie. You know guys what I'm talking about. And so yeah, very interesting and unique mechs. And I like the fact that it almost is a blend of, you know, like traditional Western Battletech, boxy, bulky, super detailed versus that Eastern sleekness of, you know, Gundam, real robot type stuff, with even a little bit of super robot mixed in there. Especially those Horus ones get into borderline super robot ridiculousness. Then we get into the GM section. What's his name? That's the dude that did the wrenchies, whose name I'm sure I would butcher. Oh, God. In that Popgun War, it will all hurt. Anyway, we're getting into comic esoteric lore. So you have a whole section back here about how to set up the game. Does this kind of setup look familiar to anybody? If you've been playing Warhammer or anything like that for a while. You get into the stat blocks for the enemies. Lots of that stuff. And then, as I said, back here is just nothing but the background lore. All kinds of stuff about what's going on in the world. There is a ton of it, and there's some pretty nice art stuck in there as well. And it is just a fun read. Obviously, there's a lot of love put into this, a lot of heart and a lot of effort, and I could always appreciate that. It's just cool to see such a interesting blend of all those various aesthetics. And come on, who doesn't want to have that kind of a character on the tabletop? So honestly and truly, I think this is a really cool first effort. A big, long index, backer characters that were created, the page that you can find them, and then we have a sample pilot character sheet here as well, and the mech to go with it. So, I'm not a huge RPG fan, but I am a fan of Tom Parkinson Morgan's art. I absolutely, truly, without a doubt, would kill to see some of this stuff actually make it to having a 3D tabletop representation, be it via actual resin kits or plastic injected models, or, you know, even just STL files that I can download and print myself. I think there is an absolute gold mine waiting out there for somebody to take these kinds of designs and run wild with them. I mean, cyberpunk seems to be the thing right now with a lot of the 3D printing going on. That seems to be really cropping up, and, you know, some of the established 3D printing cyberpunk patrons are really hopefully getting some of the recognition they deserve, like Papsicle and Unit 9. Those are two of the ones in Cyberforge via Titanforge. Nobody's really doing this kind of stuff yet, and to me that seems like a silly waste. Everything so far has been the junky, boxy, Americanized mech, whereas this is really going for that anime style, and nobody else is really doing it, or at least not doing it right. And that's the thing. I think the art team that they assembled for this book really had things on the right track. So I absolutely, wholeheartedly, fingers crossed, praying to whatever dark heretical gods you guys are into, hope that we see some models based on this stuff, because the way that the combat system works, it just screams for minis. And I mean, you can't have a bunch of 1/144 scale Gundams all over the table. It's just going to get too cluttered. So yeah, we need models of the mechs ASAP. So Massif, Tom, somebody out there, got to get on that. So absolutely enjoyed this book. Definitely going to be reading through it, and hopefully once all this pandemic nonsense is done, I do hope to actually give it a try, which is a rarity. I'm really not into the tabletop RPG stuff, but I do love telling stories, so hopefully I can sucker some family and friends into even try, and we'll see how that goes. And heck, maybe we can do a follow-up review sometime down the line when we've actually had a chance to play it. But at the least, it's a cool-looking book to flip through and enjoy, and especially those back lore sections and all the craziness that the mechs bring to action. With that said, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you back here soon. Bye-bye!